Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Harbor meeting. It's the 4th of December, and this is the United States / European version of the Harbor community meeting. So we had a fairly successful San Diego KubeCon event 2 weeks ago. Harbor was very well represented. We had, I believe, 6 maintainers from Harbor at the event. We had hours at the CNCF answer bar. We were also had 2 sessions on introduction as well as a deep dive on Harbor. So overall, we got a ton of community engagement as well as community touch points. So let's deep dive into that very quickly. We had, starting on the 18th of November, we had the Harbor Lunch and Learn workshop. Had about 50 attendees. This is where attendees showed up. We basically gave them a high-level overview of Harbor, and then from there on, they had a scenario-based set of test cases that they had to execute to learn more about Harbor and get to exercise some of the functionality. On the 19th, we had the Harbor introduction, where we had over 100 attendees that came in to learn about what's going on with Harbor and what's our next set of investments. And then the next day, on the 20th, we had a Harbor deep dive, where we basically outlined our product roadmap for the next 1 year. We deep dive into some of the specific capabilities that are coming in with the 1.10 release. And again, a little bit over 100 attendees were also at this event as well. And the Harbor maintainers and Zach and Daniel from Agua, which were the part of the team that brought us the Pluggable Scanner framework, showed up at the event, and they were all able to go out to lunch one day, and they took a nice picture of that. I see Jonas laughing. Hey, I'm sorry you were not there, Jonas. And we needed the Harbor, how we did the Velero and the contour things. We needed the Harbor one as well.
Well, we'll do a proper one for next KubeCon.
That's right. So we have a couple of upcoming community events. There's a CNCF webinar on December 11th that's going to basically be in Chinese. So that's going to be one of the first webinars that CNCF is running in that region using the local language. And then we also have on December 14th, a Harbor meetup in China. And not necessarily specifically a Harbor sponsor, but an Encore sponsored event next Wednesday, I believe. I don't remember the time, but Ross will tell us in a second. We'll have a webinar where we're going to talk about Encore and there's deep dive capabilities into their entire infrastructure and security scanning solution, and I'll be a guest speaker on that as well. So a little bit more on the community. We've hit 10,000 stars. This is an incredible milestone. I think we gained about 1,000 stars between a week before KubeCon to now. So it shows the importance of Harbor in the community, how much it is valued, and the fact that we're continuing maintaining this level of cadence from both releases, feedback, as well as our ability to kind of execute on our roadmap. The graduation for CNCF is still under review, so we don't have an update on that, but things are slowing down as after KubeCon and the end of the year now. And we are ramping up on the peer-to-peer working group to enable the integration between Harbor and P2P providers like Dragonfly and Uber Kraken. Our goal is a tentative early release for 1.11. There's no guarantee we'll make it for that, but we're working hard on to make that happen. This is basically going to enable us to more easily deliver images at both at the edge and across infrastructures and across data centers. We are hoping to have a release candidate this Friday for 1.10, and GA might happen either over the weekend or early next week. 1.10 is probably one of the most anticipated releases out there, just because of the fact that now we enable users to use pluggable scanners, which is something that we're going to talk about today as well. Any questions so far? No questions, cool. Then we've had a few patch releases in the last few days. we had 186 and 193 release. And as a result of those patch releases, we also made public the security vulnerability report that Cure53 basically performed against Harbor. Cure53 is a security vendor out of Europe. CNCF paid them to do security and penetration testing of Harbor. A set of only 4 tickets were found that were of medium or above severity. The Harbor team fixed them in these 2 releases. They will also be available in 1.10, of course. And then we issued security advisories, which are linked in the slides as well. So now, not only is the vulnerability report public, but all of the advisories have been publicized to our users, advising them to update their Harbor installations. And I think we can move on to Zach if he's ready now to talk a little bit about show us a demo of Anchor and talk about the integration that they did with the Pluggable Scanner framework in Harbor, and hopefully leave a few minutes at the end to do some Q&A. Zach, you good?
Yes. Yeah. Let me. I've got a few slides. I'll keep it pretty short. Kind of since we have the webinar and some other things for a deep dive. I'll try to keep it pretty introduction-y for this one. So I'll go ahead and share. If the mouse pointer gets all jerky and weird, that's whatever is happening on my machine right now. So bear with me, and we'll try to get through it. Let me go ahead and share the screen. All right. Oop. If I can get the mouse to work properly. There we go. Come on. There we go. Excellent. All the way back to the beginning. Okay, so thank you very much, Michael. So my name is Zach Hill. I wanted to talk real quickly, kind of intro to the Anchor scanner adapter that we're doing for Harbor. So this has been an ongoing work with the team at Harbor, as well as Daniel from Aqua, in building the actual adapter interface and the spec. And it's been a really great experience end to end, kind of collaborating with the folks and building both an API spec to enable other pluggability, as well as building our own so that we can kind of integrate Anchor's scanning results into the Harbor system directly. So I'm principal architect at Anchor. I've been at Anchor since the very first release. So I helped kind of, the CTO and I wrote Anchor v001. I'm also a Helm chart maintainer, and I do a fair bit of integration work as well. So this Harbor work, as well as a Kubernetes admission controller that we have for Anchor, to allow you to gate execution as well as registry entry based on what Anchor can do. So I'll give a really quick rundown of Anchor for those not familiar, but I'll keep it really fast. So at a high level, the mission of Anchor is enabling container-based workflows so that you can get security without compromising velocity, right? So this is a story we've heard lots before, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but this is the space where Anchor lives, and we specifically are focusing on the content of containers. So making sure that everybody understands at a very deep level what's in the container and whether container images are acceptable or not, and building automation tools to allow you to do that very quickly in your development and production workflows. The key capabilities of Anchor, we do a very deep image analysis. So while some scanners focus on like operating system packages like RPMs and debs, so Anchor will actually checksum every file in the container. We mark the username, UID, GUID, file system permissions of everything in the container. So we're looking at binaries, we look at the container metadata itself, so the steps that were used to build it. And then all of that is fed into the security scanning layer, and then eventually into a policy engine. So Anchor's bread and butter is this policy-based approach to acceptance of container content. And we do things like checks against CVSS v3 for vulnerabilities, blacklisting and whitelisting of packages or versions of packages, checking container content for credentials, making sure you didn't accidentally just push something to Harbor that has your Amazon secret key in it, as well as more standard kind of vulnerability checks. But we also extend those from OS vulnerabilities into application level stuff. So RPM, NPMs, Ruby gems, JAR, Java capabilities, things like that as well. So we have a pretty broad spectrum of capabilities and policies there, and we're able to introduce some of that into Harbor directly with this integration. So as I said, yeah, deep inspection is our main driving force, policy on top of it, and then a very API-centric approach. So Anchor itself is a service. So you stand it up and you run Anchor Engine, and it has a REST API, and there's a CLI, so you can send it, ask it to analyze a container from your CI pipeline, or maybe from a registry already, or push an analysis directly. So it's meant for automation and these workflows, and Harbor is a great example of that. So as an example of the kind of policy capabilities that are in Anchor, we can say, well, block an image that has vulnerabilities, but specifically, maybe you want only where severity is high or greater, so high or critical, or maybe you also want to use a CVS v3 score if your organization requires nothing goes into production with a vulnerability score of 7.2 or higher, right? And we can encode that. Oh, and also make sure that the image has been vulnerable for at least 30 days. That way we give our developers time to resolve issues as they come up. We don't want to block things right out of the gate. Maybe we want to give a grace period. And then maybe also that we want to ensure that a fix has been available for 10 days, so that if there was a remediation, there's time for it to be applied to the image. So these are kind of examples of the rule set that Anchor can apply on top of the straight up vulnerability scanning. And then of course, things like SSH keys or Amazon credentials found, make sure that those don't make it through the pipeline. So how do we hook this into Harbor? And please, I won't go too deep into the Anchor stuff, but if you want more information about how Anchor works, what its other capabilities, the webinar is a great example. Follow up, hit me up on Slack or on GitHub or whatever. I'm happy to talk more about that generally. I don't want to make this entire talk about just the capabilities of Anchor. So we worked with the team and we're integrating it directly into Harbor. And so specifically that allows Harbor to consume the vulnerability scan results from Anchor. So if you have an Anchor installation, now Harbor can consume that information, both consume it and trigger the scans. So we've seen Michael has demoed this before, right? How you can schedule scans for your images in Harbor and how you can consume and do whitelisting and all those other capabilities directly within Harbor, so that you can expose those vulnerability and quality results of an image directly to your registry users. Things like blocking image pulls based on the severity of vulnerabilities and scheduling scans and updates. So now we can integrate that capability of Harbor with the analysis and vulnerability scanning capability of Anchor. And that brings us to the adapter, which is how this is all built. The adapter at its highest level is effectively just an API translation layer between Harbor and Anchor. So it receives the Harbor scanner adapter API requests, translates them, and then makes API calls onto the backend to a running Anchor engine service or Anchor Enterprise. The adapter supports both our open source engine offering as well as our commercial supported enterprise offering. And the adapter itself is stateless, and that makes it pretty simple to deploy because it's just this translation layer. So there's no databases or persistence or dependent services. It runs as a single container, and you can execute it pretty simply in Kubernetes. At a high level, the flow is basically this diagram. I won't go into details here. We all love state transition and call chains. This is also in the README for the adapter if you want to dig in more specifically. But basically, again, it's arbitrating the request from Harbor and then making the appropriate request to Anchor. Set up the credential to do the pull, ask Anchor to pull the image from Harbor, do the analysis, get the results, and return them back using this scan ID framework that we developed for the pluggable adapters. So getting started is relatively easy. I'm not going to walk through the whole installation, like in a live demo, because that involves a fair bit of waiting for Kubernetes things to come up and initialize and all that stuff. So we'll save that for another time. But basically, install Harbor, install Anchor. Anchor is pretty easy to install. We have a Helm chart available in the stable repository, so it's as easy as a Helm install from stable Anchor engine, and that gets you the open source engine running in your Kubernetes cluster. Then you can install the adapter, so it can clone our repo, create a secret that gives the adapter the credentials that it needs to talk to the Anchor API. And then you can apply, there's a YAML file included in the GitHub repo that I'll show in a moment that actually runs the adapter image pretty simply and makes it available. So then we can configure it in Harbor. So I'll show that real quick. Let me pop over here. Where's my mouse pointer? Sorry, my mouse is not responding at the moment. Okay, so we'll, hopefully that will resolve itself shortly. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a moment if I can get the mouse to work. This is a strange occurrence. So the adapter itself does support authentication, so you can set an API key so that the interactions between Harbor and the adapter itself are authenticated, as well as TLS supported. The adapter also features the ability to request that Anchor expose or filter out vulnerabilities that the vendors have defined as being ignored or that they're not going to fix. So examples of this are Debian no DSA. So there are lots of vulnerabilities that say Debian will get, and they're saying, well, this is really minor. We're not going to issue a security advisory on this. And they mark that in their data. And Anchor, when it analyzes the image and combines that with the Debian vulnerability source, can respect those flags and filter the result set for you, and that helps reduce the amount of noise that you get in your vulnerability listing. The adapter has the ability to toggle that on and off, and there's a environment variable in the adapter that you can set. It's in the documentation to where if you want the really verbose, show me everything that matched, then you can have that, or you can say filter out the stuff that's not going to be fixed. I don't want to see that extra noise. And then because Anchor supports it, the scanner also supports vulnerability scans against both the operating system packages and the application packages. So you're getting all the results for both, RPMs, DEBs, APKs, as well as Python files, gems, jars, that kind of stuff. So the current status of the adapter is we're in beta. We should be GAing by the end of the week, which is the end of this week, coinciding with the Harbor GA. There's a bit of roadmap stuff, so looking at how we could do policy integration stuff, supporting more report types. For example, the inspections interrogation service that Michael's spoken of before. Anchor has the ability to supply license information about packages that it finds in the container. We have information about the layers that were used to construct the container, etc. If there's any other kind of specific features that anybody would like to see in the adapter itself, definitely reach out directly or hit me on GitHub, file an issue. And again, the webinar on the 11th will have a little more detail on those workflows specifically. So let me see if I can get this machine to work again. And this is so strange. Okay. What is, my apologies. Never had this happen before. And
if there's something that's accessible by me, I can actually share it myself and can give you access to drive it, if that works.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know. It was working. I had the machine was responding just a moment ago, and all of a sudden it just, when I started presenting, it kind of froze itself. So let me see here. So I have, I just want to get to the Harbor tab in the browser. Just, what is going on? Okay, my apologies. This is clearly not going to work.
That's okay.
The machine is not being cooperative at all, and I'm not sure why. I can either hop out and pop back in and like reboot real quick and see. I'm sure there's just something going crazy in the kernel.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. We can actually do Q&A across Harbor or anything on your end, and then you can pop out and pop back in if you like.
Yeah, let me see. I'm not even sure. Okay, so I will do that. What'll probably happen is I'll have to drop off the call, and I'll pop back in just a moment when I figure out what is going on here. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Michael.
No, go ahead.
Right back.
Go ahead. All right, everybody. Does anybody have any questions on either anything Harbor related or anything they've seen from Zach so far? Hopefully I can answer that as well.
Is Anchor open source?
So Anchor Engine is, and including the scanner adapter. Zach showed some of the URL links earlier where some of their code is on GitHub. Anchor Enterprise is a paid product that gives you a tremendous amount of more capabilities, which is what we're going to talk about in the Anchor webinar on December 11th. Ross, anything else you want to add to that?
No, not from my side.
Cool. Like our goal from a Harbor perspective was when we added additional vulnerability scanners like Anchor and Aqua, was that there is an open source component to them that aligns with the open source vision that Harbor has, so that if you wanted to remain 100% in the open source, you could do that. But if you're interested in creating an entire end-to-end security and compliance posture for your organization, then products like Anchor Enterprise is what's going to satisfy that need.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Anchor Engine is open source and freely available to everybody, and is a lot more straightforward than Enterprise, which is really built for sophisticated workflows and that sort of thing, and processes and policies.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Zach
One question I wanted.
Okay, I'm back.
Go ahead, Chris.
One question I wanted to ask was around OpenAuth support in 1.10. Is that going to be finalized in 1.10, or is some of that going to spill over to 1.11?
Did you say OpenAuth?
Yes, OIDC.
So the OIDC support was completed for a previous release. I believe we introduced it in 1.8. However, we're adding group support for OIDC in 1.10. So now you'll be able to add groups as the unit of management from an identity standpoint, so that your role-based access control is tied to a group now. So we're adding that in 1.10.
Great.
Beyond that, there's few little features here and there on IDC, but I don't have a specific timeline from when we'll deliver them. If there's something specific you're interested, if there's a GitHub ticket, go ahead and comment on it and tag us, or create a new one if you can find something that works for your organization and you guys need it.
Sure. One of the things we really need is auto onboarding. And I saw that didn't make it into 1.10, so I was curious what the schedule was for that. But thanks for answering my question.
So thank you.
I have another question. I've noticed recently I did an upgrade from 1.8 to 1.9.2, and I've been noticing an ongoing issue with the core and job service pods not coming up, and I see a couple of open GitHub issues. Is there an ongoing issue with that?
That's interesting to hear. If you don't mind, my alias is M2. I'm gonna post it here on the channel chat.
Okay.
If you can send me a message on the CNCF Slack,
Yep.
and send me the tickets that are the same ones, the experience you're having, we'll have someone from the team look at it.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
And then follow the tickets. That way, if they do reply, you can actually get the responses as well.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Doesn't look like we have any more questions. Zach, you can proceed.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. That was a little bit crazy. All right. So I will start here. So this, can we see this project on GitHub?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so this is the scanner adapter project. Again, open source. To answer his question earlier, yes, Anchor Engine is open source. It's Apache v2 licensed. So we definitely collaboration and contributions appreciated and encouraged. So actually collaborating on the adapter itself is pretty simple. So it uses some make stuff. They have documentation here for all the environment variables you can use to set up the adapter itself. But in Harbor, it's pretty straightforward. So I've already added it, but you use the the interrogation services setting that we saw previously. I have one added already here, so you can kind of see the entry. You know, the MIME types consumption, the package vulnerability data. And so it's pretty straightforward. This is all deployed in Kubernetes, so it's going to be using service names that are related to Kubernetes, but it's pretty straightforward. And so this is just running that little container, which is the Harbor adapter for Anchor, and deploying or parsing API requests back and forth. So we can see here, I've set up a quick little test project with the repositories. We can see again, the scanner here is the Anchor scanner, and the repositories example. So here we actually have the vulnerability views for Debian 8 and 9 that I've pushed here. So by default, this has turned off the filter. So we'll see a lot more vulnerabilities in this because, again, it's ignoring that no DSA tag that Debian has put. So again, kind of showing you, like, if you really want to see all the things, you can, right? And there's a bunch of them in here, which are marked. Or you can go to the Anchor side and see it. So this is what you'd see in Anchor if the browser will respond. Then it's not. Okay. I'm going to skip that, but
do Control Tab.
Oh, there we go. Yep, I've forgotten the shortcut. So this is the view of the same image in the Anchor UI. So this is the enterprise UI. I just do that for visualization purposes, but we can see the kind of things that Anchor has analyzed about this project. So this is where you get that unified view now. So anybody that's using the backend, so maybe a security team that's using the Anchor engine or enterprise for monitoring vulnerability states across a bunch of images, has the same view that Harbor that a Harbor user does, and can be synchronized. So kind of giving a broad understanding of kind of the stuff that we can expose. So that's it. I'm not going to go too deep into the guts of the implementation. But feedback definitely appreciated. We'd love to collaborate with folks on using this. If there's different ways that they would like to use the scanner adapter for Anchor, different capabilities, I'm definitely open to working with folks on improving it and helping that iteration. Again, we should have a GA out at the end of this week, unless some really bad issue occurs. But so you can find the link for the actual adapter project, as well as Anchor engine, the CLI, and the docs for Anchor itself.
Cool.
That's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach. First of all, thank you for the contributions that you have made to Harbor. Thank you for the leadership in that Pluggable Scanner work. So, and more importantly, thank you for bringing Anchor scanners to our ecosystem. So this is awesome. And I look forward to the webinar in a week. All right, everybody. Well, that's it for today. Thank you all for attending. If you have any more questions, you can find us on Slack or CNCF list. And thank you for using Harbor. Bye, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much.